Hey viewers, welcome back to the channel. Today I have another Warhammer video for you because it's cold outside and way too cold for outside projects or anything on the homestead. So we're doing fun stuff. This Warhammer video is about painting terrain. So it's a big part of Warhammer to have a nice set of terrain to play on for the game. It has to do a lot with the rules and different strategies that you can employ when you play. So it's good to have in general, and it's even nicer to have nice terrain. So what I've got here in front of you is the terrain from the Command Edition starter set, and I think it's a pretty decent value. I mean, you're paying money for this stuff. It's certainly not cheap, but the detail and quality that you get is very nice. Like you're paying for it, but you're not getting ripped off, I think. It's a quality product. It's a very nice quality. So what I wanted to talk about today was how I painted it. So I tried to match the colors and tones of the box art, and I tried to follow one of the Games Workshop tutorials on painting this. So I figured I'd show you my results and how I did it and what I used. So you guys can kind of see, hey, here's the techniques I used, here's the colors I used, and here's the results. So this is not a how-to, right? I'm not going to show you painting, right? I'm just going to show you the final result and how I did it. So, because I deviated a little bit from the main Games Workshop video, just due to lack of, they use a billion different colors and I didn't have all those. So to start off with, the number one thing I would suggest you do with this is get the spray can to base coat it. In this case, it is I used Wraitbone to base coat all this. Some other tutorials use Xandri Dust. I thought that was a little too dark and a little too yellow, so I went with Wraitbone. I started out trying to just paintbrush all this on, and I got through a couple of those pipes and realized I've almost gone through a whole pot of paint. This because it wasn't covering very well on the gray plastic. That Wraitbone you need multiple coats. So it wasn't covering well. So I went ahead and bought the spray can. It's actually the cheaper option, and oh my gosh, it saved time and the results are just better. So it probably took 2 to 3 light coats of Wraitbone to get good coverage everywhere. And I just spray painted all of it, right? I used the Games Workshop Wraitbone spray. It's more pricey, than Krylon, right? But it's one of those, I knew it's high quality paint. I knew it would work. It's designed to stick to this plastic, etc. And so I decided to spend a few extra dollars to have more of a sure thing, right, than trying to cheap out. So that's what I did. After base coating, and I'll show you kind of this one as a good example, I washed all of the beige parts with a 50-50 mix of Seraphim Sepia, shade wash, right, and Lahmian Medium, which is just the paint medium. So it's basically the paint without pigments. It's just a clear medium that you can do mixes with. So again, that was from the Games Workshop tutorial. So I did that 50-50 mix, and I painted over every beige part with that. And what that gives you is you can kind of see on the lighter staining, right? It gives that kind of tea-stained look of to get that weathering effect, right? You can kind of see on the inside a little bit too, especially pooling around the edges and the pipes and the recesses, right? All that lighter shading. That's what that does. So I coated the whole model in that. It actually took quite a bit. It took probably a half a bottle of the Seraphim Sepia and about a half a bottle of the Lahmian Medium to do all of the beige on all the parts. So kind of a time-consuming process, but the results are well worth it, I think, to give that nice textured look. And then after that, we did, for those darker recesses, you see the almost black shady parts on all of the ledges, where you would think dirt and grime would collect, right? I just did a wash of Agrax Earthshade and just concentrate it in just those little bits to kind of grime it up a little more, right? After that, I decided to do all of the silver parts. So all the silver parts here are Leadbelcher. So all of the fans, and I tried to be consistent. So all of this kind of corrugated kind of piping, right? Like almost looks like, flexible electrical conduit. I I painted with Leadbelcher, and I tried to match the box art and all the imagery I could online to try to get it as close as I could, just for something to do, right? Obviously, you can paint however you want, but so, and there's a lot of pieces in there for Leadbelcher. Some of the pieces, like all these little control panels, all right? So Leadbelcher, but it's got like a broken keypad. I used a Warplock Bronze on that to try to get more of a copper tone and just get a little bit extra, you know, different color, different, to break up the colors and everything like that, right? So same way with all of these pieces here. You'll see these, hard to see, right there in the center frame. A little, you know, I don't even know what those are, right? Electrical outlet or something, but Warplock Bronze in there as well to kind of break that up. So that is all the silver details. All of the red details I did Korne Red, and then I did a very light dry brush of Evil Sunz Scarlet, just to get a little bit of those kind of, you know, highlights on the edges for the red. Oh, I should also point out, for the beige, I did a final dry brush of Corax White, just a very light dry brush, just to hit kind of those rivets and just to brighten up the raised surfaces just a hair. So, and I think that turned out pretty well. The other major components would be the all these cogs. Right here, the Mechanicus cog here. I used Abaddon Black as the base, and I did a light dry brush of Mechanicus Standard Gray to get those gray highlights on the black side. And then on the white side, I just used Corax White. That's what I had. If I could get a hold of some Apothecary White or the Soul Blight, what's it called? Soul Blight something or other. It's like a gray shade, or the Apothecary White contrast paint. I do a layer over that to kind of give it some more depth, but I don't have that yet. So there is, so that's how you do the cogs. And then, you know, inside the cogs is all that Leadbelcher metallic. And then I tried to pick out a few wires here and there. In general, what you see on this is the wires, I either went with a green, a blue, and a yellow. So the green was all Caliban Green. The blue was all Kantor Blue, that blue right there. And then the yellow was Averland Sunset. And so, and I'll put all these colors that I used in the description of the video, so you'll have them. And as I'm talking, as I get done with the major features, I'll show you each little piece, just so you can kind of see. So but I'm using this building because it's kind of a representative sample of all the colors and everything. The other bigger piece is this floor, and I'm actually pretty happy with how the floor turned out. I'll show you here. So I base coated this floor in Abaddon Black, but before I did that, all that piping underneath the floor, I picked out with Leadbelcher. So poking and prodding the brush in there to try to get all those silver details, you know, below the surface before I painted the whole thing with Abaddon Black. And then I did a heavy dry brush of Mechanicus Standard Gray over that to give it that kind of weathered look. And then I did a much lighter dry brush over that with Administratum Grey. And it gave a nice texture, I think. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So that is I think that's pretty much it for the colors. I'll go through each piece. Oh, the other thing, on the bottom of this, you can see the bottom of the floor, it's just got mold lines and whatever. It's not designed to really, I think, be seen. And so I just spray painted that black. I just masked off the whole, I did that last. So I had the whole thing painted, then I masked everything off with blue tape and just spray painted that black just to have it kind of blend into the shadows, right? It looked a lot better than the standard gray that, you know, unpainted. So that is pretty much it for colors. I'll point some other things out as I go through, but that's kind of that first piece of building. And I'll just kind of go a little bit at a time here. So here is the next piece. Again, more of the same themes, right? You got that little skull up there, right? Leadbelcher with the, that might actually be Retributor Armor for a gold there, but you could just easily do that in the Warplock Bronze for, you know, for a copper look. And then you'll see gauges throughout. Those gauges, faces, I kind of jumped around with them. They're either Korne Red, for the backgrounds, or they are the blue or the green, right? Kantor Blue or Caliban Green for the gauge faces, and then Leadbelcher for the rim and the dial and all that. So some of the wires are really tricky to paint. As you'll see in some of these other pieces, I got a little sloppy. So here's a piece of pipe. Again, more kind of these details of Leadbelcher with the Warplock Bronze, you know, in this kind of blown off section. Try to pick out a few of the wires in there just to bring some color to it. All right. And then on the end of these pipes also, it's all, you know, Leadbelcher for the grills. So this guy, this radiator looking thing, again, another Mechanicus cog, same kind of patterns, same kind of weather, you know, same kind of color scheme and dry brushing on the black and all that. This control panel, just kind of the same color palette, picking up the wires, you know, kind of in those recesses, and then filling in these gauge clusters. I saw a couple different patterns on how to do this. I went with the Korne Red for the gauge backing there, and then for the switches, oh, that's Warplock Bronze, right? And some of these skulls, like this recessed skull here, you know, I just left it the Wraithbone to have a more like skull skeleton look to it, right? Versus a wide or anything like that. And here's the other pipe, pretty much the same as the other one, just with some different features in the recesses there, right? Again, picking out the wires on the end. Just trying to add little splashes of color to give it a little more detail, a little more depth. There's a little piece of the building. This one's a little more simple. Let's see, I try to get close so you can see kind of the sloppiness of my wires. I mean, it looks good on the table. You know, I was trying to get perfect, but it's a challenge for sure to get that level of detail, at least for me, because I'm not that good of a painter. I'm learning. So go to the thermo exchanger shrine. Again, kind of more of the same themes. Another Mechanicus cog. All the big areas, like for the Leadbelcher, you can see, especially here, I shaded with Nuln Oil, which is kind of the typical recipe, right? To bring out some of those recessed, you know, like there, the lettering, right? Kind of give it some depth. And on the side here, right, another gauge, a wheel. And there's some more gauges, right, with some different colors. I don't think I used any shades on the on all the Korne Red. I just did the dry brush of the Evil Sunz Scarlet just as a very light dry brushing, but I didn't shade it down or anything first. I don't think I had a good shade for it at the time. Another pipe, kind of the same thing, you know, so there's some gauges, right, in there. You know, some of these wires picked out using Korne Red. I guess it's worth noting a color I didn't mention on all these Mechanicus cogs, right, the eyeball. I did use Mephiston Red, the brighter red, for those. And then I think either if I didn't do it, I should do a highlight of the brighter red, the Evil Sunz Scarlet, just to give it a little more another you know, level of brightness. And on the Games Workshop tutorial, he actually used the gloss varnish Ard coat. You know, he put a gloss varnish just on the lens of the eye to make it look kind of reflective and glassy. I don't have any of that, so I didn't do it, but I'd probably do it if I did, to give it a little gloss. Here's the other building, kind of more of the same features, right? But I wanted to show you every facet, because one thing that I didn't like trying to paint all this stuff was I wanted reference art just so I could see what someone else did, so that I could either copy it and be lazy, or to at least get an idea of kind of what things could look like. So I can at least show you guys what I did. More wire bundles, and more of the same. I almost forgot to paint all those door mechanisms with the Leadbelcher. I had to go back and do all that. That was a pain. But I think that's about it. A couple more pieces just to show you. Yeah, this one's pretty simple. All those recessed, you know, vents is Leadbelcher shaded with Nuln Oil. All right. I also took the time, this took a fair bit of time, but going through with the Agrax Earthshade and all these little recesses and trying to get all the grime in there to give it that depth. That took a long time, but I'm glad I did it. I think it made it turn out very well. So I'd recommend, you know, doing that, taking your time to do it right and not rush through it. Again, more of the same color scheme, right? Leadbelcher with the Warplock Bronze. Mechanicus symbol. All right, and I think that's the last piece. I think this is the last piece. Yeah, I don't know if we showed this one, but you get the idea, right? There's a lot of similar themes. So once you kind of get one piece together, you pretty much can do it all. So that's about it. That is painting the Command Edition terrain. I think it turned out pretty well. I'm certainly happy with it. I have no idea how long it took me, but it took me a while. But I'm happy with the results. Hopefully it's helpful to you if you're going to paint this stuff. Give you an idea of at least, hey, here's my take on it, and here's what I did. And as always, I appreciate everybody watching, and we'll see you in the next video.